In this episode of the Extended Forecast, I sit down with Matt Devitt, a broadcast meteorologist in Fort Myers, Florida, who's come a long way since his early days in the business.
Devitt began his career at a small market in Texas.
After being turned down by dozens of stations out of college, he was able to spin that foot in the door moment into several other stops before winding up in his home state of Florida in 2016, becoming chief at his current station in 2021. Matt discusses the importance of networking, what it was like being live on air as storm surge from Hurricane Ian was flowing into the studio, and reflects on a major tornado outbreak in Southwest Florida last year. He also goes into detail about his commitment to his community and his love of giving back. We talk about so much in the next 30 minutes. Join us for the exciting conversation.
Thanks, Matt, so much for joining me today. I want to start off talking about, despite the fact that broadcast meteorology is all across the country, it is in fact a small world. You worked for several years with my current chief meteorologist, Lee Haywood, in Savannah. And then more recently, you had Amanda Pappas on your weather team. I graduated from NC State with her.
Small world.
It is a small world. So the question I have about that is for current students, either in college or going to school for meteorology, why is it important that they network early and make those connections so that further down the line, they might have the people they can reach out to that knows somebody to help them get a job or just kind of get further in their career?
Excellent question. I am a product of networking. So what basically happened was when I was at Penn State, I had a wonderful degree and met a lot of good people. The problem was I didn't know what I wanted to do with meteorology. Believe it or not, I almost went into the Air Force and Navy. I was not a very good public speaker. And if I had to speak in front of a large group, I would get nervous, I would get scared. So the idea of being on TV was very last minute. It was my senior year, spring break. I said, what the heck? Let me put a few clips together. And as you can imagine, with waiting until your senior year to practice and with just putting stuff together with not a very good suit and with not a very good set of clips. I applied to 44 TV stations and nobody gave me a job. Zero
Wow.
offered me a job. So here's a funny story: is I went back home. I got a degree but no job, and I was in the TV business when I got home, but I was selling TVs at Best Buy to make ends meet. So then a couple months go by, and a good buddy of mine, a good friend of mine who I had developed a good friendship with at Penn State. This is where the networking comes in. He was from Pennsylvania, true and true. His name is Drew Anderson, and I believe right now he's still in Pennsylvania or Maryland or somewhere in the Northeast. And he goes to Texas at this small market. I would say he was probably one of the most talented within our graduating class, and no surprise, that's why he got a job fairly quickly. But he didn't like that market. It was in the middle of nowhere. It was the North Texas, Southern Oklahoma, Denison, Sherman market. It just wasn't for him. So he reached out to the news director and said, "Hey, I got a buddy of mine. He's a good meteorologist, but I think he said something to the effect of like he's not very good on TV or something like that." And he said, "Why don't you give him a shot?" So I'll never forget, true story. I worked an 8 to 5 at Best Buy. I got the call from the news director because of what Drew said to him. And at like 5:03, I got the call. I drove up from Houston, Texas, where I was at the time, to the Oklahoma-Texas border. I got there by 11 and I got the job the next day. The job was slightly above minimum wage, but I didn't care because I got my foot in the door, and that was finally that in terms of networking, I found a way to get in. Now, the final thing I'll add to this is that the first 3 months, I was not very good. And I was not getting better. And what happened was, and this, you know this, sometimes there's tough love, and the TV business can be brutal. And I'll never forget my news director who brought me in. And sometimes you have good news directors, and sometimes you don't. He was not a very good news director. He didn't know how to talk to people, I think, respectfully. And he basically was like, Matt, you're not getting better. I'm going to give you 90 days or you're gone. And I said, okay, game on. And so what I did was my market was unique in that I could get Dallas, Texas TV stations and the signal from there. So I studied the chief meteorologist, what I liked and what I didn't like, and I got better and I got better and I got better and I practiced. And by the time that he noticed I had gotten a little bit better, he never signed me under a contract, and I ended up hopping to my next job. So that's how I started, at least to get in the biz.
You kind of showed them, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
That's one of the good things I think about starting in a small market is you can kind of make mistakes and learn as you go, as opposed to starting off in a medium to big market. If you make a mistake, they might kick you out that day.
That's right. And I will be flat out honest with you. Even 15 years into the business, can't believe it, 15 years. I would be lying if I said there's not a day that goes by where I at least learn a little something. And I'm one of those where I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I'm not okay with settling. Every day I want to grow and get better and learn little nuggets here and little nuggets there that will make me a better meteorologist. And then what I can take from that as being the chief meteorologist here at Wink is I want to give that to those that I mentor and the other members of this team.
Yeah, it's kind of like you want to make sure that you learn something every single day, that over the course of a year, you learn 365 things. You're a lot better a year down the road.
Yep, every single day. And this as there are things that you learn in this business you never thought that you would learn. For example, we sometimes are being asked to cover SpaceX launches and earthquakes and eclipses, and it's not just confined to what's the weather going to do. We're kind of the station scientists, and we didn't necessarily go to school for that in particular, but as time goes on, we kind of learn and adapt to what our business needs, and we try to give it in the most professional manner.
Yeah, and you were talking about that first job in the Texas, Oklahoma area. Eventually, though, after a couple of other stops, you ended up in Florida. Growing up in Florida, was that always the dream to get back to your home state?
It was my dream. I loved weather ever since I was 7 years old, and my dream was to be a chief in Florida by any means. And it took me, I want to say, it took me 6 years from college graduation to get to Florida. And of course, you think right out of college, oh, I'll get to Florida, no, easy peasy. No, it took 6 years. And one of the markets that I really grew in was at WSAV in Savannah, Georgia. I was the weekend meteorologist then, and what that job did was it made me hungry. It made me want to get better and want to grow, and it motivated me. And I wasn't happy with 50%. I wasn't even happy with 100%. I wanted to give the absolute most that I could give. And to be honest with you, when I first started out in TV, first couple of years, you're like, oh, I'm on TV. This is awesome. And then as time goes on, if you were to ask me, what do I get out of this job right now and what do I enjoy the most? My answer will always be immediately keeping those who watch me and all of Southwest Florida prepared for whatever Mother Nature throws our way, from Hurricane Ian to our 3 storm surge events that we had last year. Being there for them, that is my public responsibility. It's my commitment to this community, and that is why I do what I do. The TV thing, it's not, I don't enjoy it as much as I used to, like the glitz and glamour of it. That's not why I'm in the business. I'm more of a meteorologist first, and I enjoy covering all types of weather, but most importantly, where my heart is making sure that there are no surprises with our viewers and that they know exactly what to expect and when to expect it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things too, because it's nice to be on TV most of the time.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, you have to love what you're doing, love the science, and love helping people too, and making sure that you can keep them safe and informed year round.
that's right. That's right. Because weather doesn't stop, and
Mhm.
it doesn't care what plans that you have at any part of the day, and that's also why I enjoy this job. You know, whether it's small or whether it's major. In the case of a hurricane, every day is different. Like right now, I came into work earlier than normal because we have the potential for a marginal strong to severe weather risk, and I need to be here. If there's a severe thunderstorm warning, we need to notify the public for the possibility of hail over an inch, gusting over 55, 60 miles an hour. And I don't think there'll be so much a tornado threat here, but for other parts of Florida, there is that chance. So that is my responsibility. And the other thing is, and it's funny that we're doing this on a Sunday. One of my meteorologists, she's off today, so I'm filling in on a day where we have the potential for strong to severe. But that's what I really preach at Wink is being there for our team, and we're a family and we all have each other's backs, and by me filling in today, Nikki, the meteorologist who I'm filling in for, she's able to enjoy her weekend, and that's what I'm a big fan of, is yes, the weather life, but also your personal life.
Yeah, you have to find a nice work and life balance too. It's not just the job, it's not just life. Make sure you can kind of do both.
Exactly.
So, of course, Florida is known for hurricanes during hurricane season, but it's also known for spring training during the late February and early March periods. And this month, or early this month, you had a chance to throw out the first pitch
Yeah.
Twins game. What was that like? And had you ever wanted to do that, or did it just kind of come to be?
So that is the second time I have thrown out the first pitch. Thankfully, both times were not in the dirt. The first time, crazy story. This actually happened. I didn't know this going into it. This was for our minor league team, which is called the Mighty Muscles. They're the local affiliate. So I'm going up there to throw the first pitch, and there's another guy there. And if you've ever seen the movie Happy Gilmore, it was Shooter McGavin. So Shooter McGavin and me are throwing out the first pitch. And I was like, I love Happy Gilmore, so I was kind of starstruck. I was like, that's Shooter McGavin. Oh my gosh. And super cool guy, really nice, very humble. You'd never think that he's like a Hollywood star. And I think he threw it in the dirt and he said, oh, and then I had to come after him and he was like, no pressure, dude. And I'm like, oh man. So thankfully I think that one I threw a strike. And then the one I did a couple days ago for the Minnesota Twins, they were taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. That one was a ball, but I don't want to throw it too hard because it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? So I used to play baseball years ago, but clearly based on the look of that pitch, it's been a minute. But I had a wonderful time, and yeah, we have 4 local affiliates. We have the Twins, the Red Sox, the Rays, and the Braves. So I will oftentimes do weather forecast for them because the one thing I'm real big on is impact forecast graphics, whether it's the golf, the beach, baseball. We try to think of ways that the weather impacts your daily plans.
Yeah, because weather affects everybody, either no matter what your job is, whatever you're doing, every single person is impacted by the forecast.
Yeah, that's right.
And getting back to talking about hurricanes themselves, one of the most impactful ones you've had recently was back in 2022. You saw Hurricane Ian make landfall in the Fort Myers area,
Yeah.
and you had storm surge, even so much so that your station had feet of water in it. What was that experience like, and was it anything that you expected to have that kind of an impact on your station itself?
Yeah. The and this was a tricky storm in the way that the station handled it. For the record, I did advise my news director and the owners that the building was going to flood. But what I was told was, and this is not just confined to management, it was confined to many other locals in Southwest Florida that might have been a little stubborn. And, you know, they had the philosophy of, well, we've been here since 1950. We've been here since 1960. We've never flooded in our history. And one of the things that we learned from Ian, to name a few, is that you can't compare storm experiences from the past thinking that you know how a future storm is going to behave. You need to treat every hurricane with a clean slate. The classic example is Ian versus Hurricane Charlie in 2004. They technically both made landfall in Lee County. They both made landfall with winds of 150. They both made landfall during the 3 o'clock hour, and they both roughly had the same similar track from the Caribbean into the Gulf. But these two storms could not have been any different. Charlie was small and it was fast. Ian was big and it was slow. And consequently, Ian produced twice as much surge as Charlie. It had triple the rainfall, and the impacts were just unbelievable. From freshwater flooding, we had 27 inches of rain. From the saltwater flooding from surge, we had 15 feet on Fort Myers Beach. The highest official gusts until the anemometers failed was 140 miles an hour in South Cape Coral. Very likely gusts were higher than that, but we didn't have any. A lot of the anemometers either drowned, failed, ripped in half. It was very difficult to get accurate observations. So since then, I've been very encouraged that our local county officials have made the investment in more sensors, especially through the WeatherStem network, and they've made the commitment to try to fix that with future storms. So, and if you don't mind, Matt, I'm going to go kind of interactive here. During Hurricane Ian, I was expecting water to get in the building and potentially in feet. So what we did was we had everybody go to the second floor. That's oftentimes where we have our sales department. Everybody went up to the second floor, and then just the mission critical news staff was on the first floor, including me. There was a time during Ian, I was the only one in the studio because water was getting in the building. So all the anchors had left, and it was just me. And I literally can see the water coming in on the corner of my eye. So I'm like let's say I'm looking forward and there's the camera. I would literally say, yeah, Hurricane Ian is, and I can see the water rushing in. And that was the highest that in recent memory it has got. Before Ian, water had never gotten in the building. This building has been here since 1950. Since then, Matt, we have had this building flood 3 times during Helene and during Milton. So I would like to, because it's amazing how you can see it. I'm going to move to the weather wall, and believe it or not, the high water mark from Milton is still in this studio.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to switch it around.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to switch around the camera. And if you see that line,
Yeah, you can see it.
that is how high the water got with both Helene and Milton. We had to get a new green screen after Ian, but that much water came in all the way from that door and outside during Helene and Milton. I would say Ian was probably twice that. So the mean higher high water mark during Ian was 7.25. And then during Helene and Milton, it was around 5 to 5.5. So Ian had 2 more feet on top of what Helene and Milton did. Ian, without a doubt, is the worst natural disaster. I did a lot of homework in our local libraries and going back all the way to the 18th century, Ian was our worst natural disaster ever recorded, and it's not even close. It's one that changed lives in hours, minutes, and seconds. And it made hurricane PTSD a real thing. And I've seen it firsthand in the months and the years after. And it's, we just need a break. It's been a rough stretch.
Yeah, you've had several back-to-back years, sometimes more than one in the same year. Hopefully this season turns out a little quieter.
I'm hopeful for that because I'm also I have a baby on the way in early June, and I already have a 2-year-old. So for my sanity, I'm hoping for
That's the last thing you
a
need.
quiet stretch coming up.
You know, we're talking about the storm surge, obviously, and then tropical systems always bring strong winds.
Yeah.
But the lesser extent, but still a threat, is the spin-out tornadoes on the northeast side. But you also get tornadoes in southwestern Florida during the non-hurricane season. During January of 2022, you saw an EF2 come through Fort Myers. So with such a wide variety of extreme weather, what's your message that you push on to people to always be prepared no matter what the season is and what could possibly happen throughout the year?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're kind of at the mercy of the various swings in Enzo. You know, for example, we normally are not a fan of La Nina during hurricane season because it oftentimes historically produces more storms and stronger storms. But the flip side is we want El Nino during the summer because you have more vertical wind shear in the tropical Atlantic. But the problem is during the winter, that oftentimes can produce some of the strongest storms that Florida's ever seen on record, and also more of them. And the problem with our tornadoes, it's not like in the plains, at least in most cases. I mean, Milton busted that big time, but most of ours last for seconds, minutes, a couple miles. But during that Milton tornado outbreak, which, Matt, I have never seen anything like that in our area. I did some homework on that. That is the worst tornado outbreak Southwest Florida has ever seen. In my viewing area, we had 19 tornadoes. We had an EF2. We had, I'm sure you saw the pictures and videos. We had wedge tornadoes.
Yeah.
Like, we don't see that. We don't see that. Though we had a wedge tornado near Clewiston, near Lake Okeechobee.
And they were so discreet too. They were like individual cells that just lined up across that part of the state.
Yeah, I mean, we had multiple debris balls. And again, you don't see this in Florida very often. When we see stuff like that in Florida, it's normally in the panhandle with better ingredients in the atmosphere. Down here, we oftentimes will lack the upper wind support. We get the Cape, but we sometimes will lack the upper wind support. But with Milton, we had that. And the one thing, as crazy as this is to sound, that since 1950, at least the data that we have, before 1950, we don't have it, but since 1950, Southwest Florida, my viewing area, has never had something greater than an EF2. That changed with Milton. We had an EF3 near Lake Okeechobee, and it was absolutely terrible. It devastated one of my communities, just horrible devastation. And then we had another one that went right through. This is one we tracked live on Wink with our radar. We had one that went from Fort Myers, crossed the Caloosahatchee River, went into North Fort Myers, and that one was on the ground for like a half hour and 16 miles. And again, most of ours, it's a couple seconds, a few minutes. It's just that Milton provided the upper air support along with even some dry air sucking in and the shear. It was a recipe for the worst tornado outbreak I've ever seen, at least locally.
Yeah, most recently down here, the strongest tornado we had in the past few years was an EF3 in February of all months. Happened at night, about 11:30, came through, killed a few people. So it's one of those things where any time of the year, any time of the day, weather can change on a dime. So it's important to make sure that you stay aware and have ways to get informed, even while you might be asleep too.
Yep, that's right. I mean, that's especially with nocturnal tornadoes and that threat. I mean, that's That's the number one thing to do. And the one thing that I will say, since Ian and Helene and Milton, every storm, and I'm sure you do this too, you find what worked well and what didn't work well, and ways that you can improve and things that you can do better. And already for this hurricane season, I have a few tricks up my sleeve that I'm going to try and to help not only communicate storm surge better, but visualize it too.
Yeah, it's always good to make sure that we have ways that people can not just get the information, but see it visually. A lot of times, if they can actually see it, they take the warning more seriously and actually try to get in their safe place.
That's right. That's right.
So outside of weather, you also take part in other things, Make-A-Wish, the American Cancer Society, among others. Why is it important that you take part in things like that away from weather too?
Because this is my home and this is our community, and you know, you could go to work, call it a day, and head home, but that's not enough. At least in my eyes, I have a commitment to this community, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it because it makes people happier. And the reality of the situation is, as much as we would love to live forever, we have a very precious short time on this earth. And if I can find a way in that short time to make someone's life better, that's the goal. And it's the goal every single time. And I try to use my platform for good, whether it's through litter pickups, making our Gulf cleaner, to Make-A-Wish, to I had one for the special needs population. It was a few weeks ago, where I was the MC of an event where they raised money for them to do a fashion show. And you should have seen the smile on their face, where they basically did a fashion show, and all the attention was on them. And they were dressed to the nines. They looked amazing. And the smile that they had on their faces, that's what it's about. And that's what I love doing, and it fills my heart. Even more so, when I'm not at work and not at home, I enjoy it, because it's more than just keeping the community safe during weather. I want to be there for the community to boost them up, bring some positivity, and make them happy. And that's what I enjoy doing.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're living where your viewers are too. You're not just talking to them through the TV. You're going out at the store where they are, the movies, wherever, and you see them, interact with them. So to make your community a better place all around is always the ultimate goal.
Well, and because, I'm a big believer that if you do something positive, it may not happen the next day, it may not even happen the next month, but oftentimes people will pay it forward. And I'll give you a classic example. During Hurricane Ian, I was in the office, I was slammed, my wife was pregnant, and I did not have time to go put up my shutters. The chief meteorologist had no time to put up his shutters. And, that it literally had my neighbors like driving by to see, like, oh, does he have his shutters up? And true story, there was a local church that was driving around looking to help, and they came to my house, and they didn't know who I was, and they didn't know who my wife was, and that's what I love, though, is that it shouldn't matter who I am, and I'm just a person. I'm the person who gives weather, and they were there for my wife and I. They helped put up shutters. They went up on the second floor of my home, and they went above and beyond. And I recently heard this. I did a hurricane talk about 2 weeks ago in Collier County, just south of here. And the emergency management official there said that one of the big things that we can never lose sight of is neighbors helping neighbors. And that is so true during a natural disaster. And let's just help out our neighbors during all situations. And I'll never forget that church did that for me. So my way of paying it forward after was, when we were completely void of resources after Ian, what was it, 2 days later, I grabbed a few of our meteorologists at the time. One was named Nash Rhodes, another one named Dylan Federico, and we ended up coming together. I said, "Hey guys, I know it's been a long stretch here, but let's go help." So we just went up to impromptu here to a resources handout from the Army. They were handing out water, MREs, and the line was a mile long, wrapped around.
Wow.
And we helped them facilitate those much needed resources. And then after we were done, we went home. It never made it to TV, it never made it to air, but we didn't want it to. It's like, that's not why we did it. We wanted to do it because our community needed us. And that's why we do the things that we do, especially during natural disasters, because it's neighbors helping neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of those things that mean the most are the ones that weren't done to get recognition, just doing it because it's the right thing to do and it's going to pay off in the long run too.
Exactly.
All right, lastly, I want to talk about the future of meteorology, being the young kids and the current college students. You, of course, like many people, got your love of weather early on. How did that start, and what advice do you have for the next generation of meteorologists?
It's a changing world. My resume tape in 2010 was created with an actual tape. And then I was able to transfer it to a DVD, which we don't even have anymore now, too. So now it's becoming increasingly more digital. And I just went to a research conference in Minnesota. I got back from it a few weeks ago, and TV is no longer the number one source of where people get their weather information. It's your app. And I hate to say that you're competing against an app, but you need to provide content that they won't get on their app. You need to go above and beyond to give them a reason to watch TV. Or you can use your social media outlet to not only give them information, but also find ways to draw them in. I am a firm believer that, especially during critical big weather events, people will still watch TV. They may watch Wink, for example. They may stream it on their phone, but they're still watching our news product, because that's one of the best ways for live breaking news. There also is the incorporation of AI. We're already seeing that with some of our various models. My dad believes that I'm going to get taken out by a avatar and a robot. I don't think we're there just yet. I have seen it done in a few countries, but I don't know. And you can disagree with this, but people like to watch people.
Mm-hmm.
It humanizes it in more ways than one. It's more heartfelt. Will that be the case in 100 years? I don't know. We have made great leaps with computer models and with accuracy, but there still is more room for growth. And clearly the recent NOAA cuts are not helping us. So that's another loaded topic, but we need to do the best that we can with the resources that we have. And it's amazing how you can see the gains that we have made in this business just by looking at the National Hurricane Center forecast cone, how much it has shrunk. It's half the size of what it was when it was implemented in the early 2000s. I think it was around 2002. And I'm curious to see what it will look like in 20 years from now. It'll probably be even thinner. So I believe that is where our business is going. But I also believe, and I talked to my wife about this just yesterday, the day before, there's been a movement away from organizations and more towards a love of individuals, whether that be the Max Velocities and the Mike's Weather Page or Reed Timmer or whoever it may be. That has become increasingly more popular. And I think that that's probably what will continue in the years ahead, is not so much watching the Weather Channel, but watching a person who they enjoy watching, like you and or me or Reed Timmer or Jim Cantori, whoever. I think that we will continue to evolve into an outlet where we gravitate to more of the individual instead of groups or organizations.
And it's already happening some too, as far as even local TV. People have their favorites that they tune in to watch. You might say the exact same thing as one of your colleagues, but they like you more, they like the other person more. It's
Yep.
just really an individual decision at that point.
Yeah, because I think the reason why that is it's all about trust.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the turning point for especially trust in national media, because that's the one thing we got to clarify. National media is different from local media, very different.
Yeah.
Although we have the word media, not all media is created equal. Just like not every doctor is created equal, or every police officer, or every teacher. They're all different. So the term media, I think sometimes it gets inappropriately used because media is just so far-reaching, and that's the thing that we do differently is I think that we can really narrow in on the trust factor. National media, like I'll give you a classic example. During Ian, the national media covered it before, during, and after. But after 2 days, they were gone, or even after a week, they were gone. I'm not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here. This is my community. This is our home, and I'm not going anywhere. So that's my service, my public service to the community, and that's what's different from the national outlets. And we have a responsibility, and we have a better opportunity to build trust, which I think has really started to go downhill, especially with national outlets. That trust since about 2015, 2016, and people are trying to find other ways to build that trust. So that's just my opinion. It's something that I've noticed. But local media is the way to go, especially where you live. And when we have bad weather, they got your back.
Exactly. Hopefully we can capitalize upon that. All right, I'll let you get your workday started. Thank you once again for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much, and it was a pleasure talking with you.
Big thanks to meteorologist Matt Devitt for taking the time to talk to me. Don't forget to like this video, comment below, and subscribe for more future content just like this.